I remember vividly shortly after I started driving and I could I had the freedom to go out at all hours and stuff. And like so many teenagers and college kids, early 20s, those are just like our night owl years, right? I remember vividly, I lived in California at the time and it was 2:30 in the morning, and California had a lot of fast food joints that were 24 hours at that time, but not all of them. And we had a chain out west called Del Taco, kind of a competitor to Taco Bell. And I remember driving to Del Taco at like 2:30 in the morning, maybe even closer to 3. And as I'm driving down State College Boulevard in Fullerton, California, all of a sudden the crossing lights start and the gates go down, and a train that seemed like it was 2 miles long starts going by in the middle of the night. Now, prior to this, I was certainly aware that trains ran at night. I remember, like, coming home from the same street. I remember coming home from my grandparents, after dark or something, and maybe we'd be waiting for a train, but that was, like, 7, 8 o'clock at night, not at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I don't know why it never dawned on me before that point, but trains run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It just I never connected those dots, and where I lived, if the wind was blowing a certain way and stuff, sometimes you could hear a train horn way off in the distance, sometimes, not all the time, and we would hear them at night, but I never my young brain never connected those dots. "Hey, dude, those are going all the time." That really astounded me at the time. So let's talk about that today. Welcome to Railroad Economics. My name is Mark Magana. And why the heck don't trains operate on normal business hours? What is their problem? Well, railroads have operated around the clock for well over a century now. Even even back in the 50s when many businesses, including your local grocery stores, were closed on Sundays because of so-called blue laws, which were like state and local laws that restricted certain business activities on Sundays. The railroad kept moving. That's even where I live today, out in Ohio. Um, there are certain things. No liquor sales across the state line in Pennsylvania. I'm told you can't buy a car on Sundays. But these are kind of remnants from a bygone era. But even back when it was so common for almost everything to be closed on Sundays, the railroads were going. Now, okay, the local hardware store closes, the department store closes. Freight and passenger trains, they were still running across the country, even way back in the day. So why? Why is that the way it is? Well, because in short, railroads aren't factories. They're transportation networks. A factory can shut down at 5 o'clock and pick back up at 8 o'clock the next morning. A railroad can't work that way. It's the highway connecting thousands of businesses together. That's essentially what a railroad is. Imagine if Interstate 80 closed every evening at 5 p.m. and didn't reopen until the next morning. Trucks would pile up for miles, deliveries would be delayed, and businesses across the country would not only feel that impact immediately, they would be pretty pissed off. That's exactly what would happen if freight railroads kept office hours. It also comes down to the customers. Some industries do operate around the clock. Power plants need coal. Intermodal terminals load containers at all hours. Ports do not sleep. Grain elevators, steel mills, refineries, automotive plants, they all have different schedules. Many of them run 2 and 3 shifts. That's normal. The railroad industry can't simply tell those customers, sorry, it's 4:55, we're going to come back tomorrow. Can't work that way. Instead, it has to move freight whenever its customers need the freight moved. Now, it's true that some customers, especially decades ago, did close on Sundays. A local factory might not receive freight that day, but the railroad wasn't hauling freight for just one customer. A train leaving Chicago might have cars destined for 20 different industries across several states in the Midwest. Stopping the entire railroad because one customer was closed simply was not an option. Then there's the equipment. As we have previously discussed, a modern freight locomotive costs several $1,000,000. Freight cars, rail yards, terminals, and thousands of miles of track all represent enormous investments. If a railroad only operated 8 hours a day, or even 12 or 15 hours a day, those assets would just sit idle for far too much time. From a business standpoint, that is incredibly expensive. The more hours a locomotive spends moving freight, the more value it generates. The same is true for freight cars, rail yards, and terminals. Railroads invest billions of dollars in infrastructure, so they want those assets working as efficiently as possible. But perhaps the biggest reason is that railroads operate a giant network. A train leaving Los Angeles today might not arrive in Chicago for several days. Another train leaving Chicago could be headed to New Jersey. Others are connecting through North Platte, Kansas City, Memphis, Atlanta. It's all connected. Even though they're different railroads, it is still all connected. If one railroad decided to stop everything at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it wouldn't just affect one train. The delays would be spread across the entire rail network, affecting locomotives, crews, freight cars, customer shipments, hundreds, even thousands of miles away. Of course, railroads still need time to maintain their tracks. Instead of shutting down the network, maintenance is very carefully scheduled around train traffic. That's why you'll sometimes see trains operating over a single track while crews work on the other. It is a constant balancing act between moving the freight and maintaining the infrastructure that keeps the freight moving. So, why don't railroads work 9 to 5? Well, because railroads aren't simply businesses with operating hours. They're part of the transportation network that keeps the entire economy moving 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The economy never stops, it's always going. So, the next time you hear a freight train roll through town in the middle of the night, remember it's not because someone wanted to work the night shift. It's because somewhere, someone is waiting for a shipment. And in the railroad business, freight never sleeps. My name is Mark Magana. This has been Railroad Economics. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.